This is the Decarbonization Disruptors Podcast. I am your host, Matthew Cohen. This is episode 10 of our podcast, and I am pleased to welcome Jennifer Nuckles. Jennifer is the CEO of R0. R0 is a building intelligence platform that delivers real-time insights on how to optimize indoor spaces and buildings to improve workforce productivity, right-size real estate portfolios, and create operational efficiencies, as well as reducing energy costs. Jennifer, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Matthew, for having me.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to see you and kind of get your insight on some things. I'm really excited to speak with you because in a lot of the guests we've had in the podcast here recently, they usually come from an engineering background or a sales background. And I was really excited to hear your perspective because you come from marketing leadership. And I was curious because a lot of the conversations I've been having lately have been around, how do we introduce disruptive products and how do we get the market as a whole to embrace them, especially when they're out of the norm of what would normally see. And I was just curious, I know it's kind of a broad question, but kind of generally in your background and your life, what drives the business or a consumer to really grasp a product on a massive scale so that it can be, really accepted by the community that's buying it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So thank you, Matthew. So following business school, I spent 10 years in product management and brand management at the Clorox company. So I was a career changer. I had worked in management consulting prior to business school, and I wanted to be in an operating role. And I went to a blue chip manufacturing company to really understand how the customer and consumer thinks. And so I think the most applicable things that I learned early in training and brand management was always start and end with your customer. And I think that's really important to remember. I've done that across a number of verticals, whether it's gaming, whether it's fintech, whether it's technology more broadly. I think really understanding what a consumer is solving for and what they are trying to accomplish is really important. And you use all of those need states to impact your product development and feed those insights back to your R&D team on a physical product or a technology team on a digital product. So there's a different level of hierarchy structure that exists in marketing that relates to consumer understanding. And at the very bottom of that hierarchy is what's called the feature description. And this is basically like if you were to say, I use a pen and it has ink in it, or if I launch software that allows you to understand what's happening in your building, in my case. So that's kind of your feature level. And then you get to your functional benefits. The functional benefit is like what the product actually does to benefit the end user. So, if you have ink in a pen, you can write on a piece of paper. You can get your thoughts accomplished across. If you have building software, you can use all of the data that's at your fingertips that you can't develop insights from and actually develop insights and use those to make decisions. You then get a little bit higher from the functional benefit into what's like the emotional benefit. And that's like how your end user feels using your product. And this is where trust and credibility, consistency really comes into play. It's really important to remember that a customer takes about 6 to 8 interactions with you before they'll make a purchase decision. And so knowing that you have to do a lot of discovery, you would need to understand what you're solving for, meet your customer where they're at to help solve their need, make their life easier, really important. And I use that training that I got early on across a variety of verticals and industries that I've worked in the past 30 years. I think you can take the principles of, tangible shelves and apply them to e-commerce, apply them to intangible goods, apply them to technology. It really starts with a deep understanding of the user and what matters.
And that experience, especially your experience at Clorox, again, I saw a lot of it was kind of around health and wellness.
Yeah.
And obviously, I imagine it relates very well into what you do now. So I'd love to hear more about how that transition happened and how you leverage that background, I imagine, to your current role at R0.
Yeah. So when I think about what's mattered to me over the past 30 years, there's really 3 big buckets. It's the environment, it's health, and it's education. So I graduated from an undergrad degree from University of California, Berkeley. I had an interdisciplinary major that focused on the intersection between business, economics, and policy. And then I went to business school. And I went to business school at Harvard. And after Harvard, I worked for a decade at Clorox, as I mentioned. in marketing. I launched the first new brand at Clorox in over 80 years. It's called Greenworks. Probably many of you have seen it. It's on the shelves in your local, grocery store or mass store. And this got to 100 million in sales in the first quarter, which is, admirable. But I think what was most interesting about it is this is a line of natural cleaners that was launched from a large petrochemical company. And so, when I pitched this idea to the leadership team, the CEO at Clorox, I had an understanding that there doesn't need to be a trade-off between efficacy and the environment. And there's a whole host of consumers who would purchase a brand that was better for the planet, but that was still efficacious. So this was kind of my first foray into sustainable products. I left Clorox. I went into a number of technology roles. I was chief marketing officer of Zynga. I was one of 3 executive vice presidents at SoFi. So I used technology to solve antiquated solutions, and really starting with kind of, thinking about disinfection or cleaning or health and sustainability solutions that have been around for 100 years that can actually be improved using technology. That was the genesis of R0. I was on the board of R0 for about 2.5 years before I joined as CEO. R0 was founded by 3 brilliant co-founders who had the idea that you can displace kind of manual cleaning and disinfection techniques by using technology. And I understood that world really well because I had worked at Clorox and I had been in technology companies for the past 20 years. What we've seen, over the past 2 years since I've been in the seat is all of our customers are using the data intelligence that we provide through our hardware and software to make informed decisions about their built environment and lessen the trade-offs between what's good for the earth and what's good for people.
And talk more about that as far as RZO's offering, especially how
Yeah.
you're leveraging data specific to optimizing indoor environmental health, because there's a lot of software out there, but I think your solution is very unique and kind of hits a very specific need. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So the R0 solution includes 3 different areas. The first is the data platform. What we do with our data platform is we aggregate different sources of data that's already available within the built environment into a single source, single pane of glass. Many people use that frame. We normalize that data. We do the integration for our customers. The second thing we do is we provide monitoring and alerting. So this is everything from like fault detection, energy management, space utilization. And then the third thing that we do is we provide automation. So this would be changes to energy consumption, changes to workforce productivity, based on like configurations of the space or the movement within the space. And so I think of this as helping building owners and operators solve their top challenges. Essentially, we make their building data useful. We do this by starting with benchmarking performance across energy usage, occupancy, air quality, all of the various data inputs. And then we maximize the ROI across every square footage, which is really important for building owners, by dynamically controlling the building automation systems. This would respond to changes in occupancy. This would optimize for energy consumption and comfort, again, so we're not making those trade-offs between what's good for the inhabitants of the space and how much it actually costs the building operators to run it. This could involve swapping out air filters. This could involve adding more sensors, tapping into the BACnet, the building automation and control network with a gateway. When I think about this, historically, there's been a very significant trade-off by achieving a balance within the built environment. So, comfort, productivity, health, and experience have either resulted in very much increase in energy consumption, or you don't have those capabilities within the built environment. Instead, you're kind of saving the energy by making it not as comfortable of an environment in terms of heating and dimming of lights and air conditioning usage. So we really remove that trade-off, which allows for functional spaces to be highly productive for the inhabitants. And also kind of foster better performance and better efficiency without making those compromises.
And the building owners that you interact with, I can imagine lately the commercial real estate market's been an interesting place to be.
Yeah.
They have their own challenges, and I was wondering kind of how you're navigating that, especially when you're looking at someone and trying to getting them to make a capital investment. I'm sure the solution makes all the sense in the world, but with all the headwinds that they're receiving, how are you navigating that to say, hey, I know what you're doing with there's a lot right now. Your occupancy is off. You're not at peak demand, but this is a needed solution that you have to have.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different things you touched on, which I'll talk about both in terms of like local laws and funding, but also when I think just in general about what the commercial real estate owners, landlords are dealing with right now. There's three main areas. So as you noted, the commercial real estate market has reset. Look, I live in San Francisco. San Francisco, of any market probably in the US, is still feeling this the most. We have high vacancies. A number of customers, clients have moved out of the area because the state is so expensive to operate in. So what we hear from our customers across the US, actually internationally, is three things. The first is interoperability. So buildings already operate with a lot of different streams of data. Much of that data requires manual analysis to extract the value. So because of this, there is a much increased demand for simplified, centralized tools that allow the building owners and operators to integrate all of the building management system data into one easy to digest view. So that's the first. I think there's a magnitude of data. There's more data that's ever been available before, but it's not that useful. Number two is providing the actionable insights that I mentioned. So, data alone won't drive change or improvements. The building owners and operators really need the solutions that are going to provide the insights around how to take action based on the data inputs they get. And then the third thing that we do, which is very unique, is the automation. So building owners, operators are looking for systems to be automated based on the data inputs and insights in the real time so they can make progress towards their carbon goals. For example, building systems can be dialed up and down based on real-time occupancy at the floor level, the room level, the building level, if you're running a full portfolio, to make a meaningful impact in energy savings. And then the fourth, as you mentioned, is really ease of deployment. Everyone is dealing with a myriad of changes in the market right now, including staffing shortages. The CRE market's changing very fast. Building owners and operators need to remain agile in order to keep up with the tenant demands. The flight to quality is real. We're seeing, especially at the real estate investment trust level or large landlord, portfolio landlords, really operating the buildings with the most innovative solutions so they can stay ahead of their competitors. So any new technology that's offered really has to fit within the existing tech stack without adding complexity to the overall operational capabilities and workflows of the building.
So essentially, you're talking about really able to have customization. So whatever area fits best for you, there's a solution that you can have.
That's right. Really bespoke solutions. Yeah.
Awesome. And then, you joined R0 at an interesting time when COVID was upon us. And I remember thinking back at that time, once COVID hit, all of a sudden everybody's building was dirty, the air was terrible, and there was all these new solutions that were on the forefront. And I'm curious how you see, indoor air quality and just occupancy quality generally. Kind of, is it still trending in that direction of being more important to building owners, or do you think COVID shined a light on it and it's sort of kind of withered and maybe not be on the forefront of everyone's mind today like it was when that's all people cared about?
Yeah. I think what COVID did, besides awaken us to the spread of pathogens and the social nature of humans, is it really emphasized the importance of the indoor environment and change how we interact with it. We just spoke about how city dynamics have evolved. People have decided where they want to live. There's much more of a push to change the way that you overall work and where you live. I think the reality of this is we spend 90% of our time indoors, and humans as a social being want different spaces than they did 4 years ago. So there is definitely an awareness of long-term exposure to poor indoor health. Quality can significantly impact our well-being, our aging, cognitive capabilities, our long-term health. But I think in general, air quality is a really top priority. In the West, where I live, we have wildfire season that we're in right now. That hits every year in expensive human capital areas. Again, I would call Silicon Valley one of those where the cost of engineering is, one of the largest line items in a P&L. It's really important that cognitive capabilities aren't impaired, that the work environment is comfortable as well as safe, and again that every commitment that has been made at the local and state level, which I'll talk about in a second, is able to be obtained. There's local law 97, which is in New York. California has committed to net zero. I'm on a task force with California, the state of California, actually about California as a global economy. So you think about all of these different commitments that different local and the federal level has made to the importance of not stopping our economy again. And these are coming with pretty significant trade-offs because energy costs are so high. And so this has become a really top priority for commercial building owners, operators, the tenants. The U.S. indoor air quality market itself is projected to reach $12 billion by 2027. But I think most people associate indoor air quality with health, and it's much more than that. It's not just health, actually, in my view. Common indoor pollutants are carbon dioxide, which causes drowsiness, reduced concentration, particulate matter, which would be like dust, mold spores, pollen, cause respiratory issues. Organic compounds are like those found in cleaning agents, like the company I grew up at, paint, off gas from new furniture. These are all objections to tenants and to people, gathering in the indoor space. And so I think what IAQ, indoor air quality, does is unlock much more than improved occupant health. You understand environmental comfort measures like temperature, humidity, pressure, light intensity, noise. So the building operators and owners can maximize productivity, prevent discomfort, protect themselves from risk, and improve their choice versus competition. Also, just technically very important to detect mechanical issues early and reduce maintenance costs. So many buildings have adopted MERV ratings on their air filtration, MERV 13, MERV 14, MERV 15. Those are causing increased energy drops, increased energy usage. And what we're seeing is that there's a huge focus to maintain that same level of efficacy and quality within the building, but look for solutions to reduce that energy usage. And then, a lot of companies and at the state level are required to actually report out on how they're adhering and they're complying. So this allows the data usage to support healthy building certifications like Reset Well, LEED, Fitwell.
And with all those benefits, I wanted to get your take on kind of decarbonization generally, because one thing that you said in the very beginning that I found really interesting is the different aspects of product marketing, and the last one being emotion. And I've worked with a lot of software companies over the years in smart buildings, and what I've found, and almost in a frustrating sense, is I wish there was more marketing around. It's not about the building, it's about the people in them. And so that's who we're trying to save and be sustainable. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of how we can kind of pull on that emotion side more to get more technology and benefits to buildings themselves, which will obviously curb carbon emissions. And then obviously there'll be we're just going to live in a better world. So I wanted to get your take on kind of what you're seeing out there and kind of what can be done more to kind of pull on that part of it to get more technology into places it needs to go.
Yeah. I think if you think about the environment, it's really all that matters, right? We want to keep the planet a safe and productive place for our children, for our grandchildren. Everything else is kind of eclipsed by the world that we live in, and we want to keep it prolonged for the future. And I think governments have really awakened to this, and you see the commitment at the government level. So, if you think about the high usage of energy, specifically HVAC systems typically use about 40 to 50%. This would be like heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Those are the largest energy consumers in the office building. Lighting is about 15 to 25%. office equipment, which is kind of interesting, but the computers that you and I are both on right now, monitors, printers, copiers, all the electronic devices that we're all glued to now, these use 10 to 20% of energy, water heating, and then there's a lot of stuff like elevators and escalators and other building systems. So you think about the pure cost of running a business, and it's astronomical. When you think about the people cost, what's happened, especially in this macro dislocation over the past couple of years, is that hard costs have really been focused on, less on the human capital. The human capital was a big focus, 4 years ago, as so many lives were lost and people weren't able to socialize and everyone was in their homes. So I think everyone agrees that, we are a social society and we need to get people together frequently, and we need to improve the productivity, the global infrastructure. And we shouldn't have to make trade-offs to do this. And so what's happening is there's a number of government initiatives that are actually focusing on that, whether it's the GSA Green Proving Ground, which we're on. There's strategic energy management. It's known as SCM. It's a low documentation pathway to custom incentives for large energy enrolled customers in California. There's been an increase in climate regulations at the state and federal level, specifically California, Colorado, New York, to really reduce emissions. CPACE loans, which are financing energy efficiency and renewable energy solutions. So you're really seeing this come to the forefront. And that's important because we have to have this be a large serving initiative that benefits everyone. And individual clients can't solve it. There has to be solutions for everyone at scale.
Yeah, I mean, it's really insightful, and I think what you guys are doing are really on the forefront of being able to bring those solutions. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And in closing, anything else you want to share about what's going on now at R0 or even upcoming that our audience should know and get excited about?
I think we covered a lot. I would just say if there's anything that we can ever do to help on the education front, if you want to learn more about how indoor air quality or indoor environmental quality, that's another term that's used a lot. It's IEQ. Data can support smart building strategies, actionable insights. We release every quarter a building intelligence index. Our Q3 building intelligence index was just published. It's available on our website. It's an educational resource for building owners and operators. We spend a good amount of time in content development through partnerships as well as on our own. So we have upcoming webinars with IFMA, Green Build, Creed Tech. Next week, I'm at PropTech, which is the largest conference out in London for the European market. So I think, internationally, property owners, managers, landlords are really paying attention to what solutions are available to solve their problems, which goes back to what, our very first introductory sentence in this podcast, which always start and end with the consumer and understanding what's important to them and how you can use technology to expedite the solutions to meet those needs is really key.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes together. So I definitely appreciate taking time to speak with me. Excited to see what you do going forward.
Great.
And we'll have a link below in the video for R0's website.
Okay.
So again, Jennifer, thank you for taking the time to do this. This is the Decarbonization Disruptors Podcast, and we'll see you next time.